We are in the first Mishnah, which is Halacha Gimel. Yesh b'truma u'maiser. You see that?
Yeah.
Yesh b'truma u'maiser. There are aspects which apply to truma and maiser. The maiser is maiser sheni. Maiser bikurim, which do not apply to bikurim. Shal truma v'maiser osina sagorin. Truma maiser forbid the silo, meaning that if you do not take off truma maiser, you can't eat the grain. Yesh lem shiur. They also have a specific shiur, which is 40th, 50th, 60th, and maiser sheni a 10th actually. V'noagim l'chol ha'peros, and they apply to all fruits. As opposed to bikurim, which only applies to shuvas aminim. B'ifnei habayis shelo, b'ifnei habayis, where there is a beis hamikdash, where there is no beis hamikdash. Uvarisin, and if you're a sharecropper, by percentage, chakiros, or by a fixed fee, uvasikri or even you're a bandit, or a gozlan, or a thief who stole the land, you still got to take off truma in order to eat it, right? There's no brera. Harel b'truma meiser, there's still truma meiser. Ma'ashengen bikurim, all these not apply to bikurim. Yesh bikurim, Hashem came b'truma. What do you have by bikurim which you do not have by truma or by meiser? Shal bikurim nikdim m'chuber l'karka. Bikurim can be designated. We'll see later on an opinion which disagrees, but according to most opinions, you can designate bikurim when they're still connected to the ground. Osanam close to their bikurim, a person can make his entire field into bikurim. Whereas truma and meiser, you have to leave over something, right? It has to be reishis, shirani, karim. V'chayev b'achriyusan, and you're chayev in achrayus. In other words, if they get lost or stolen, you have to make restitution. Tuning korban, when you bring the Yerushalmi, you have to bring a korban accompanying them. Shiur, you have to sing when you accompany them. Utnufa, you have to lift them up to the Kohen and wave them in the air. Vilna, and you have to stay overnight when you come to Yerushalmi. Trumas HaMaiser, Shavel Bikurim B'Shtei Drachim. Trumas HaMaiser, which is the truma you take off the meiser given to a Levi, is equivalent to Bikurim in two ways. Truma Shtei Drachim, it's equivalent to truma in two ways. Nitelos min haTorah min al Tmeo. Trumas meiser can be taken from Torah stuff and Tomei stuff, Vish Shalom min Amukov, and from not necessarily the same location. Could be kurim. This is a truma itself. You can't take off Torah al atmeya, even though you're going to cause the Kohen a loss by giving a tamei, but you have to better take off tamei in order that you should do it all min amukaf. Everything should be in the same location. So therefore, if you have tamei stuff, you take off tamei truma. No choice. However, by trumas ma'aser it doesn't apply, and that's like bikurim. Bikurim you could take off from one of your fields and all of your fields. It doesn't have to necessarily be in the same location. V'oser es hagoren. Furthermore, trumas ma'aser is similar to truma in that it forbids the goren. In other words, before you take it off, you're not allowed to eat from the stuff. The yesh shiur k'truma, it's got a shiur, although the shiur by truma is derabanan, and the shiur by trumas ma'aser is deraisa, but nonetheless it does have a shiur. In that respect, they are comparable, that they both have to have trumas taken off.
This Mishnah is an excellent summary of practically
right.
what the Seder is wrong.
Yes, it's true.
It should have been in the beginning of the Seder. Might have made...
There's a bunch of them here, we're going to see. Nicho at truma oseres. I understand that truma asers the goren, and if you don't take off once you've taken off truma, you cannot snack anymore, right? So that's the Gemara. Meiser also goren. What does meiser do? It's already also because of the truma. What is the meiser to? What is the meiser forbidding you to snack from? So it says Marti Potter Shiktim B'Shibolim. To have a case, you took off the meiser before the truma, when it was still in the stalks, before you had threshed it properly. So at that point, the meiser is what forbids you to snack from it later on. Once you take off the meiser, you may no longer snack from it subsequently. Okay? This like Rabbi Avo said, name of Hashem B'Lakish, Ma'aser Rishon Shekdim M'Shibolim. If you took a Ma'aser Rishon while still in the stalks, so Potter mi Truma Gedola, that stuff which you took off, the Ma'aser Rishon is exempt from Truma Gedola, even though Truma normally precedes Ma'aser. In this case, the Ma'aser which preceded the Truma is exempt, but subsequently the fruit is also to snack on until you take off the rest of the Truma Sumaisers. So that's true even if you take off Meiser Sheni prior to having taken off the Truma. From that time on, snacking is forbidden. Okay, Nikdim Mechuber Karka, all these things are required when they're connected to the ground. The Bikurim, I shouldn't say all these things, Bikurim. The Chesiv, it says, Bikurei Kol Asher Be'artzom. The Bikurim, everything which is in the land. Be'artzom means in the land, so even when it's in the land, it already becomes Bikurim. Also, Dam is close, so they're Bikurim, Persikameh is the Torah fields. Bikurim, the Chesiv, it says, so Pasuk in Yecheskel, Ve'reishis Kol Bikurei Kol, the beginning of all the Bikurim of everything. So the extra Kol teaches us that you can make your entire field, your Kol, your entire field, Bikurim. If they get lost, you have to make restitution. Get lost or stolen or something else happens, you have to make restitution. The Chesiv, it says, Reishis Bikurei Ad Moscha, and the end of the book says, Tavi Beis Hashem Lokecha. It says you have to bring the Bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash. So if they don't get the Beis HaMikdash, you are not Yotze, you have to make restitution. Utzini Korban, you have to bring a Korban with them. Why? Nemar Kan V'samach Simcha. It says V'samach the B'chol HaToiv here. Should rejoice with when you bring Bikurim. V'nemar Lahalon Simcha. And it says that by Yom Tov Simcha. Ma Simcha Shnemar Lahalon Shlomim. Just like Simcha, which is mentioned subsequently as Shlomim, Korbanos. Afghan Shlomim, so here it's referring to Korbanos. The shiur, how do we learn the song? Namar Khan, here it says, now here's a typo, it should be Tov. It says, Samachta B'chol HaTov. It doesn't say shiur here, it says, Samachta B'chol HaTov. But Namar La'alon, and it says later on, Pasuk also, I think it's in Yecheskel. Yeah. V'inchol Lohem, you are for them, Kishira Gavim, like a romantic song, Umeitav Nogain, and something which is played well on an instrument. So, Kser Shava Tov Tov.
Here's two examples. They're using Suvim to darshan.
Nevi'im. But, maybe Yerushalmi is more lenient in that area. It's a good question. Seems like you've asked me that in the past, I think. So I guess Yerushalmi does have more leniency, perhaps more leeway. Okay.
Written in Eretz Yisrael, and this is written in
Yeah,
Eretz Yisrael.
could be. It's a continuation. To Tnufa, waving. The Chesiv, it says, L'kach kohen eten miyadecha. It says, kohen should take the basket from your hands, v'hinicho, and place it. Now, it sounds like it's the v'hinicho is an extra word, and the Rabbos Bikurim, it teaches us to include Bikurim, shetunim b'tnufa, that they require tnufa. But Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that Bikurim required Tnufa. But the way the Levi Yerushalayim brings it down, it's not learned out from the Vinicho, but from Gzeir Shava Yad. It says Okacha Kohen HaKohen Tenem Miyodecha, and it says Yad by Tnufa. So therefore we learn Gzeir Shava, that's to be waved in the air. The Lina, you have to stay in Yerushalayim. The Chesiv, it says, Ufanisa baboker, you should turn in the morning after every time. It's not necessarily after just bring Bikurim. Any time you come into the Beis HaMikdash, you go in the morning, back to your tent. Kopino shatpona, any departure which you depart, lo yel baboker, can only be in the morning. Amra, so you have to stay overnight. Amra Rabbi Yoina said, Hoda dat Amar, this that you said, that there's lina specifically because of Bikurim, Ksheini Moim Korban. That's necessarily only if they don't have a Korban with them. Avyesh Moim Korban, if they have a Korban, but Lokach, in any event, Ton Lina, you have to stay overnight, Machmos of Korban, because anytime you sacrifice a sacrifice, the Loch is you must stay overnight, usually. You gotta stay in a motel or hotel. You can't go home right away that night.
It's a tourist agency.
Right, the tourist agency made it like Korban. Rav Yonah Amar Rav Meisha, Rav Yonah said that Rav Meisha, V'chad Mirabban, and another one of the rabbis, made two statements which are not connected, which are somewhat not connected to each other, which are connected to our Mishnah. Chad Minon Omar, one of them said, Zos Omeres, our Mishnah teaches us, Sha'aperos ha'tamei v'chayav b'bikurim, that tamei fruit is chayav and bikurim, right? Because it says you can't take from Torah and tamei, but it sounds like tamei itself you can take bikurim on. Okay, that's what we learn from our Mishnah. And the Chorona Amar, the other thing we can see from our Mishnah is Ma'aser Rishon Shikdimo b'Shibolim. If you take Ma'aser Rishon off when it's still grain, So then, parts of Truma Gedolah. It's exempt, but it still stalks. It's exempt from Truma Gedolah because it says in our mission, Trumas Meiser is Kovea that afterwards you cannot snack, right? Trumas Meiser asks the grain. Yeah, but what about the Truma? Why did not mention that you have to take Truma off the Trumas Meiser? So it must be you don't. It must be that once you took Meiser off in the earlier stage when it's still in the stalks, on that Meiser you don't have to take Truma Gedolah. Special din. That even though normally Truma must precede Meiser, here, although you did something wrong, once the Meiser preceded Truma, you don't have to take Truma off on that Meiser.
So it's a loophole.
It's a loophole. But it's not a good one because you get flogged for it. You do it intentionally, you get flogged. Okay, it's an Isser to take Meiser off out of order.
Bringing Bikurim that's tummy, you could bring that to the base of Mikdash?
No, you can't bring it to Bikurim. No, you can't. You can't bring it as Bikurim, but nonetheless, they can be designated as Bikurim. I don't know exactly what you do with them. I guess you burn them, you destroy them. Yeah, probably means that they became tummy once you designated them. So they remained the bikurim, and therefore you have to give them kedusha. But you're right. There's not much you can do with them. Okay.
Can you bring it into Yerushalmi, or you have to?
You can. We can't eat it anyway. You missed. We did one mission before you got here today. Okay, we're on Testament base. Halacha Daled. Esrog shavel Elon b'shlosha drachim. And esrog is similar to an Elon. This is a mission which appears in the Bavli a couple of times, but here's the source. Esrog shavel Elon b'shlosha drachim. And esrog is like a tree in three ways. Now, a tree follows the budding of the fruit. Okay, that's what determines its status vis-a-vis everything. Uyerek b'derech echad. Vegetables are like go after the gathering of the vegetable vis-a-vis everything. Esrog has split personality. Shavel is equivalent to a tree, but orla, in other words, if it budded during a fruit which budded during an orla year is orla, even if you harvested it the next year. Ravai, fruit which budded during a Ravai year, fourth year, is Ravai, even if you harvest the next year. Over Shvius, fruit which budded during a Shemitah year is Shemitah fruit, even though it budded, you've collected the next year. Ulierek, so to what extent is it like a vegetable? That which year Meiser is determined by when it's collected. So it's even if it budded, say, in the second year, was collected in the third year, what Meiser would you give it to it? Third year, which is Meiser Ani, right? So in terms of Meisers, we gave it a similarity of vegetables. It's like a tree in every respect. It says more imla ilon. If it's like a tree, so then lama liyerek. How does it go like a vegetable? Imla yerek lama liyelon. If it's like a vegetable, how does it go like a tree? Now this question is asking more than meets the eye. What the question means to say is, you got a problem. When a tree goes from the 6th year into the 7th year, right, an esrog tree, goes from the 6th year to the 7th year, what is it? What are you going to do with it? Right? The 6th year, it's chanotos in the 6th year, it's chayv meisers. You're collected in the 7th year when it's potter from meisers because shvita. So what do you do with it?
But we said it's like the 6th year because you budded in your 6th year.
But what about for meiser? So it says more no chochmas. Taman Amri, they said like this, straight up. Nichlas b'shishis l'shvius, they said in Bavel, it goes through the 6th year, 7th year, harei u'lebailim, the owner gets to keep it. In other words, there's no chiyuv biur, kilan like a tree. In other words, there's no din kedusha shemitah. Upatim meiser kierek, but it's exempt from meiser like a vegetable. So you get the best of both worlds. You don't have to take off meiser from it because it was gathered in the 7th year, and at the same time there's a kedusha shvius because it budded in the 6th year. Amal and Rabbi Nuna said, Amin de Brasra. Let's say, or let's discuss, is better the translation, the next case. What's the next case? The nichnas v'shvius l'shminis. If you go from Shemitah into the 8th year, what do you do then? Hareu hefker. look, if it's a start going in the 7th year, it's Hefker, right? Keilon. Like any tree which is Hefker during Shemitah. You have Chayev and Meisers be carrot, but now it's collecting the 8th year, so it's got to be Chayev and Meiser like a vegetable. If a Hefker, Chayev and Meisers, is Hefker, Chayev and Meiser, are you going to take a Meiser off of this? On Rabbi Yechon said, you know what, you're right. There's a problem. For one which budded in the 7th year and went in the 8th year, what are we going to do? We have a paradox. We can't be Chayev and Meiser because it budded in Hefker. Yet we cannot exempt it from Meiser because it was gathered during the 8th year. So what do we do? So it says more in Rabbi Yochanan B'Shar Shnei Shavuot Mahalach Bo Kiyerek. The rest of the Shemitah cycle, you follow, you give it the status of vegetable vis-a-vis Meiser. With Shmiis, but vis-a-vis Shemitah, Amalach Bo Kiyerek, you give it the status of a tree. How so? Hechavida. How does it work? Mechamishis l'shishis. If the tree started growing in the 5th year, and went into the 6th year, then shishis. Then vis-a-vis Meiser, it's like the 6th year. Mishishis l'shvius, if it went from the 6th year to the 7th year, shishis. It's still considered to be 6th year. Why? Again, because Shemitah disrupts. By Shemitah, we go by the previous year. Nichas mechamishis l'shishis ulashvius. What happens? Esrog, the fruit stays on the tree for a long time. So it started going to the 5th and stayed on the tree on the 6th for the 6th and the 7th. So likdon, here's the typo, likdon b'shishis. If you collect it during the 6th year, shishis. Right, 6th year. Likdon b'shvius, if you collect it during the 7th year, chamishis. Then it's like the 5th year. Why? Because you're stuck. What are you going to do with it? It's not the 6th. Type, two double typo. Likdon b'shishis, shishis. Likdon b'chamishis, I'm sorry, Likdon b'shishis, shvius, chamishis. B'shvius, chamishis. So you go to the 7th year, they have to go back too. Because you go either after Lakita when you may not. You go after Chanota, even that's 2 years ago. So that's how you follow the 5th year. Okay? Similarly, Nichnas b'shishis l'shvius, if you go from the 6th year to the 7th year and then to the 8th year. Some fruit stays on the tree for 2 years. So then, Likdon here's the same type of typo. Likdon b'shvius, if you collect it during the 7th year, then shishis, you have to give it in the 6th year, because that's when the budding was. B'shminis, if you collect it during the 8th year, shminis, then you give it the 8th year status. Okay? Rabbi Seinu Chosavigov with Nimdu. The rabbis devoted again, and they changed it. They said Esrog v'shas likitoso isuro. They said an Esrog goes after the time when it's collected for Meiser, both for Meisers and for Shvius. So it's for Shemitah also follows the time of Lakita, not the time of Chanota. Okay? The time it's collected, not the time when it buds.
You know, not that it makes any difference, but usually the words of the Nimno are followed by the Gomro. I'm just curious that the terminology is not different than they define in the Bible. I don't know if it means anything. I don't know. I'm wondering.
It's a valid question. What yeah.
I don't know.
It's a good point though. Rabbi Yochanan said, and Rabbi Simon Shimon Levi said, Hakol Moedim, everybody agrees to Rosh Hashanah Shlo B'tu B'Shvat. And Rosh Hashanah goes to B'Shvat. Now this is a very ironic thing. For vegetables, Meisers, the hinge is Rosh Hashanah. The real Rosh Hashanah. For fruit, the hinge is Tu B'Shvat. Right? For Meiser Oni and Meiser Sheni. So the thing is that, although we go after Lakita by an Esrog, nonetheless, Lakita determines its status based on Tu B'Shvat. So if Lakita is between Tu B'Shvat and Rosh Hashanah, even though for vegetables it's not yet a Meiser on a year, for fruit it is, and therefore it's going to get the din of a Meiser on a year, and so on and so forth. Okay? It's a big chiddush. Rabbi Yechon Shal Rabbi Yonasan. Rabbi Yonasan asked Rabbi Yonasan an amazing question. And this question really does not appear in the Bavli, and it's interesting, it appears in Yerushalmi. He asked him, how does Tu B'Shvat work? Kesidah and Shoshayim, does it work like the years, like the Jewish calendar? Or Kesidah Shadkufas, does it work like the seasons? When would Tu B'Shvat be if you went by season?
Fall.
45 days after December 21st. Because the change in season is approximately Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Chodesh Teves, excuse me. Chodesh Teves. Tu B'Shvat is 45 days later. So if you went by a seasonal calendar, then it would actually be December 21st, the onset of winter, plus 45 days. It makes more sense to us, agronomically speaking, to have it as a fixed date on the seasonal calendar. That's really his question. Okay? It's an interesting question. So Amalei, so he said, Kisidron Shoshanim, it works like the lunar calendar. Even if Tu B'Shvat is very early, right? It's got a leap year, and which means Tu B'Shvat is very early. We only make leap years, and Tu B'Shvat is when you have to make up for, compensate for the year being too early otherwise. Nonetheless, you go after Tu B'Shvat and not after the 45th day after the beginning of winter.
Nothing else in our calendar is based on a solar calendar, is it? Except for
Talmud and Chusar, it says, yeah. So I don't know if anything else is, but there are so it's a legitimate question. Okay, Ma'aser Rabbi Akiva is a Ma'aser Rabbi Akiva. Shaliket Esrog, that he collected an Esrog on that it's brought down in Levi Yerushalmi on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, but the truth is it could be any time between Rosh Chodesh Shvat and Tu B'Shvat. Okay, any time between those two dates. The Nogel of Chumrei Beis Shammai and Chumrei Beis Hillel. He gave the Chumrei Beis Shammai and Chumrei Beis Hillel. Now the problem is Beis Shammai says when does Rosh Hashanah Lanos Rosh Chodesh Shvat? Beis Hillel says Rosh Hashanah Lanos is Tu B'Shvat. So this, let's say, is going from the second year into the third year, right? So he doesn't know when to begin the third year. Is it Tu B'Shvat or is it Rosh Chodesh? He collected this commodity between Rosh Chodesh and Tu B'Shvat. So what does he do? He has to give two maasros, right? He wants to machna Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, right? Ma'aser Sheni according to Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, and Ma'aser Oni according to Beis Hillel, right? And the other way. Ma'aser Sheni according to Beis Hillel, and Ma'aser Oni according to Beis Shammai, because it's next year already according to Beis Shammai from Rosh Chodesh Shvat, right? Now, the truth is, you can't do it. We'll see what he does do in a few moments, but that's what it seems that Rabbi Akiva did. Lo Eliezer asked, well, why is the Ma'aser with an esrog? I feel sharko here. What difference does it make an esrog? Anything else? The same halach should apply by anything. It says Tani Chumrei Rabban Gamliel, which wants to tell us Chumrei Rabban Gamliel, or Chumrei Rabbi Lezer. The truth is, it didn't mean that he was machmir Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. No, he was machmir on Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Gamliel goes after Lakita, after gathering. Rabbi Lezer goes after Chanot, after budding. So he gathered after Rosh Chodesh Shvat, right? Which is New Year according to Beis Shammai. But the Chanota was in the previous year according to Beis Shammai, right? So he wanted to be machmir both. Says what? Nice, but Rabbi Gamliel Lezer Lomi Beis Hillel Inu Navu. I understand. Weren't Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Lezer both from Beis Hillel? So regardless, it makes no difference of whether you go after Lakita or Chanota. Since it's collecting for Tu B'Shvat, according to Beis Hillel, it's the previous years. So it says, I'm Rabbi Yosef Barabun. Tipoter b'shechana kodem letu b'shvat shel shniya v'nichnas al shlishis. We're talking about a case where the Chanota itself occurred prior to Tu B'Shvat, and he collected after Tu B'Shvat. Okay, let's make it clear like Beis Hillel. The Chanota was before Tu B'Shvat, and he collected after Tu B'Shvat. Al Daiter Gamliel, corner of Gamliel, who goes after Lakita vis-a-vis Esrog. So after when you gather it, so he's Surani, after you Ma'aser Oni. Al Daiter Rabbi Eliezer, corner of Eliezer, Yisuro Sheni gave Ma'aser Sheni the previous years. Ma solo. Now, what did Rabbi Akiva do? The halach is you can't give double Ma'aser. Ma'aser has to be precise, 10%. So you can't give double Ma'aser. What do you do? So it says Gemara, Ma solo kara shem lo Ma'aser Sheni shabo. He designated a Ma'aser Sheni. Upadyo. He redeemed then the Ma'aser Sheni for Nosalani and gave the same Ma'aser Sheni to an Ani. So that way he killed two birds with one stone and only gave one kind of Ma'aser. Okay? Period. Now, radically different sugyas. Dam ha'alchei shtayim. Forget Zroim. Dam al-Chishtayim. Blood of human beings. Shavel Dam Behemo. It's equivalent to animal blood. Lachshir is Zroim that if it falls on
Like a creature, that's what it says. That's what Malchishtaim is.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't figure out why, like person. Okay.
Could be a kangaroo. Okay, let's not. Dam al-Chishtayim. Shavel Dam Behemo. It's equivalent to an animal. Lachshir is Zroim. And it makes Zroim be Makabel Tumah. In other words, it makes them suitable to be Mukhshar of them. Dam HaSheretz Ein Chayav Elav. Now, if you have blood of a sheretz, you don't get koretz on it. Or for that matter, malchus, except that the Gemara will give us an exception. Okay, that's reptilian blood. Rabbi Ba and Rav Huna b'Shem Rab said, Imi trubo loke. In the case if you eat blood from a reptile, if they give you hasra that you're eating, then you're loike. You get malchus. Well, what's going on? Well, let's see. Then we learn dam sheretz ein chayav love. There's no chiyuv on dam sheretz, right? Rabbi Ba ein chayav love koretz. There's no koretz on it, but you still get flogged. Ask Gemara about time. Didn't we learn a brayso elsewhere? Dam al-Chishtayim shem bem tumakal. Dam al-Chishtayim. Why is the blood of a human being? He walks on two, not tamei, because it's shem bo tumakala. It doesn't even have tumakala. Tumakala means it doesn't even have the tuma of tumasochlin. It's not considered to be food at all, right? The blood of a human being is no tuma whatsoever. Dam sheret shemu tuma chamura. Dam sheret is not. You know what? I should define that better. Dam al-Chishtayim. No, I don't have to find it better. This one I have to find better. Dam sheret shemu tuma chamura. Dam sheret is not metame. It's not chayav kores, rather, or because it doesn't have tuma chamura. What does it mean? It doesn't have chamura. It doesn't. What? No, it's not metame begodim. Nevela is metame begodim. Dead carcasses of animals are metame begodim. Birds, when you swallow their carcasses, they're metame begodim. That's tuma chamura, not just you, but your clothing. These things, the blood of the sheretz, and the blood of a human being are never metame tuma chamura. The sheretz itself cannot be metame odom letame begodim. It's close, it can't become tame. And the dam of a human being is even less. The dam of the human being and the human being himself cannot be metame tuma sochlin. A dead snake can be considered food, but a dead human being is never considered food. Okay? So therefore their blood is not a chiyuv koretz like the other species. So in any event, says Gemara, so how are you getting malchus on it? So I'm right with barada hada detem chshita bo mishum dam. You know what? You can't get malchus if I give you a story because of blood. Avlim yisrael bo mishum sheretz loke, sheketz loke. But the thing is that it's part of the reptile. Interesting. If you have a kazayas of the reptile, including its blood, you're going to get malchus for that. So you get malchus for the sheretz aspect of it. Okay, is that clear? Malchus of blood, it's not blood. A shtickle sheretz, it is. A shtick sheretz. Shtick sheretz.
Shekets,
sheretz, same thing.
Now, blood from a dead human.
Yeah.
Is metame, isn't it? Aviyavol Satuma is an extension of.
Revius of blood is metame boel, but it's not metame begodim. Yeah, but it's not metame begodim.
While a dead human
Yeah.
would metame begodim.
No.
No. Isn't that Aviyavol Satuma?
No. If you touch the dead person, the dead person, it's not metame the begodim you're wearing. If I recall correctly, it's only metame the begodim directly, but the tami odom, the tami begodim, that's it in by nevela and by sheret, by navela and by nevela, yeah, or tumi yitzim gufo zav. I mean, and things like that. But generally speaking, I don't think by a mace. Okay.
So by your sherets we find the damo kivsaro,
Yes.
but not by anything else.
Right.
So it comes out, it's cool as a chumrah.
That's right. But certainly is a significant kula, because by an animal, if you take the blood and drink it, you have courage. By sheretz, you're not. This is significant kula.
I have a medical reason that these shrotzim carry disease, and they carry it in their bloodstream.
Yeah.
So,
Well, stomach, everything carries disease in their bloodstream, don't they?
yeah, but in those days, maybe humans didn't.
I don't know. But that's not where the Torah banned
I'm
blood.
trying to
Extrapolate. All right. Okay, our old buddy, Koi. Yes.
Is it koi or kvi?
If I always thought it was kfi, but it's really Koi. Okay. Koi yeshu drachim. Shava l'chaya. A koi has ways in which it's equivalent to a chaya. It's because I'm embarrassed that I looked, not because koi yeshu drachim. Shava
The reasons that's one of his values.
Yeah. Koi yeshu drachim shava l'chaya. Yeshu drachim. You know how long it's been since I looked on a Jastro? I don't look at these things. It's beneath my dignity. Koi yeshu drachim shava l'chaya. Yeshu drachim shava l'beima. You have a koi, it's similar to chaya in certain ways, and similar to behema in certain ways. V'yesh b'drachim shavu chaya l'behema. And in certain ways in which it's similar to both. V'yesh b'drachim she'enu shavu lo l'chaya v'lo l'behema. And in certain ways in which it's not similar to either. Ketot shavu l'chaya. How is it similar to a chaya? Doma ton kisui. You have to cover the blood when you slaughter it. Kidam chaya, like the blood of a chaya. However, because that's not a definitive requirement, only misafe, so therefore ain't shochtim also b'yontiv. You can't shech the koy on yontiv, because you don't know whether you have the right to cover its blood or not, right? You cover it misafe on a weekday. But on Shabbos, what are you going to do when yontiv? How are you going to take dirt, which is muktzah, for the purpose of something which you're not even sure you need to do, right? V'im shochto, if you did shech it, ein mechasim is dama, you do not cover the blood. Kisu yadam is not a ma'akev, right? The animal's still kosher, you don't do the mitzvah. V'chelbo metame tumas nevelo kechaya. It's chaylev, it's fats, in its hindquarters mostly, are metame tumas nevelo, just as if it's a chaya. Why? Because they might be edible. A chaya's chaylev is metame because you're allowed to eat it, because the only chaylev of a behema is also, not a chaylev of a chaya, right? So this, in this case, we say, it's misafik, we have to assume that it's chaylev is metame. However, since tumaso is misafik, right? Ve'ain poidebo petach hamor. One cannot use a koi to redeem a firstborn donkey, because we don't know whether it's a valid set, it's a valid goat, in order to use it. Ketzah travel behema, also like an animal, like a behema. Chelbo also kechel behema, we can't eat its chelev, because it might be like the chelev of a behema. Ve'en chelev of course, you're not chai of course if you do eat it, because you don't know if it's true chelev or not. Ve'en nilkach because of meiser, one cannot use meiser sheni money to buy it. The simple pshat is because you can't sacrifice it, and all animals, both meiser sheni money, have to be sacrificable. Luchav Yerushalayim to when you come to eat in Yerushalayim. The chayim b'tzorol chayim l'kevan. You have to give the parts of it which go to a kohen to a kohen. Right? Rabbi Lezer Poter says you do not have to. Shamotzi b'chaver lovaraya. Let the kohen prove that a kohen is chayiv in matanos. Ketzad einu shovel l'chayiv behema. How is it not like a chayiv or a behema? Asim mishum kilayim, one is not allowed to mate it, husband it. Ima chayiv b'yam behema, neither with a chayiv nor with a behema. HaKosev chayes uvehem to libno. If somebody writes a will and bequeaths his chayes and behemoths to his son, lo kaselos hakoi, the koi slips between the cracks, it's not included. I'm a reigning nazir. Verse says, I'm a nazir. Shezeh chaya ubehema, that this animal is a chaya or a behema. I raise a nazir. It's a nazir because we don't know. Misafik, it's got to be a nazir. We don't know if it's a chaya behema or not. V'shar drachim in any other way, shavin l'chayil behema, it's equivalent to an animal, to chaya and a behema, which is tun shchita kazel requires shchita like both of them. U'matam mishum nevela, we can mishum ervin achai, it's got the tumas nevela and achai kazel like both of them as well. Ezu koi, what is a koi? Rabbi Lezer says, Eiz sh'olal gabe tzvi, it's a goat which had relations with a deer. So a goat is a behema and a deer is a chaya, so that's a problem. Or tzvi shol agabi is the opposite, a male goat and a female deer.
Is it possible?
I mean, a male deer and a female goat.
Physiologically, is it possible?
You're asking the wrong guy. Beyond my area of expertise. Okay? They don't study this in Torah schools. Rabbanan say, Minhu ikaro. It's its own type. The model of a chachami did not know what its status is. Okay, it's like ben hashmoshos. Right, we don't know what it is. Padui b'chor, b'padi b'kvi, b'koi. If you redeemed a firstborn donkey with a koi, so choser poda b'set. You have to go and redeem again because you might have a yetze. Now you can give either one to the kohen, right? Because kohen only gets one. So prove that you owe more than one. Lefila, therefore, imes echon me'am. If one of them dies, hamotzer chaver levaraya. So then you get to keep the other one and say, you prove to me that one which is coming to you was one who was the one which is still alive, because I could have given you either which one I wanted. Okay. Now a couple of typos here in the next section. Masnis in our Mishnah is Kid Rabbi Eliezer. Do you have a parentheses around the low?
No.
Okay. This is from the Rash Siroleo. Masnis in Rabbi Eliezer, our Mishnah like Eliezer. The tiny Rabbi Eliezer Omer, because Rabbi Eliezer is the one who says, Koi chayovin al. He takes out the ain. Do you have the ain taken out?
That's a premise.
Parentheses. Okay. Koi chayovin al chebo osham toli. Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Eliezer. Eliezer said, Koi, if you eat it, it's chaylev, so you get an osham toli. So too here, our Mishnah makes it clear, we don't know what status of the chaylev is. And if you ate it, you have to bring an osham toli, you have to bring an osham, which you bring on the stuff, you could transgress an aver, because we don't know if you transgress an aver or not, right? Masisin galo karat. The Mishnah is not like Rav. The Rav Amar, Rav said, Kol sheyev sharlamad avado. Anytime when you cannot clarify what the nature of the beast is definitively, and chayam el sveik osham toli, you don't bring on a suffix osham toli. It's got to be something which somehow, somewhere, somebody can clarify. And a koi is absolutely unclarifiable. Okay? So therefore, like Rav, you want to bring an osham toli on this. Yes.
You don't bring anything.
Nothing. Yeah.
So is that again then an osham toli, that it has to be something on which you can...
Right, that's a whole lumbus of ikva yisura or not ikva yisura, whether you need to know the specific history or not know the specific history. Or the Achronim speak about things like that. It's Gemara increases, which I'd rather, not allowed to say, rather, whatever. Okay, says more further. Pasar law. So Rav says no. Chalukim al divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Could be that they are. Could be that they argue. The Rabbanan argue Rabbi Eliezer, and therefore I like the Rabbanan who argue Rabbi Eliezer and would hold there's no Asham Toli in this case. Period. You should know, says the Gemara, even the time when there was, it seems like the fact that all animals born in Yerushalayim with Meiser Sheni when you have to go to Karbanos was a later decree. Came sometime late in history. But even prior to that decree, you couldn't buy a koi. Why couldn't you buy a koi with Meiser money? So Levi explains, because you'd be diminished the amount. I think it's from the Rash. No, it's from the Graham Horowitz, or Blazer Moshe Horowitz. So that it's because you can't eat the chaylev, but the chaylev might be edible. So therefore, you're causing a hefsed to Meiser Sheni, because the loss of edible portions of the animal is a loss to Meiser Sheni. Okay, so if you can't use Meiser Sheni money to buy it, okay? To buy a behemoth, so the chaylev is off limits anyway. It's not incorporated to the cheshbon, but where it's possible it isn't included, so therefore it creates a problem. Okay, the chayv Yisrael chayv keva Rabbi Eliezer poter. Have Yisrael chayv keva to Kohen. Eliezer says you don't have to. Why is that? Rabbi Eliezer duamar. Rabbi Eliezer says achshav hu mistapek lo. Right now we have a suffix. Now we're meaning that we're talking about. He holds that it's talking about Ezabol at Tzivya or Tzivyabol or Tzviyabol el Iza. Talking about the cross of a goat and a goat and a deer. So therefore he said, Lamaisa, there's no pasuk which indicates this is chayev. So Motzu Chaver Lavarai, the Kohen's got to come and say, prove to me that the Kohen's got to come and prove that it's chayev. Rabbanan Amrin, Rabbanan Dinun Marin, Rabbanan themselves say, as they are consistent with their line of reasoning, Minu Ikaro. It's a type unto itself. In an Amrin Chayev, that's they say chayev. So the Yerushalmi explains that they learn out from that it says Oseh in the pasuk. Anything which is even a seh, right? It's possible that since koi, we don't know for sure what exactly it falls under, but since it was known at one time, right? Because it's not a crossbreed, but rather min b'fnei atzmo, so therefore you have to assume that it's chayim Yisrael, chayim ukeva. Okay? Masis and local Rebbe, our Mishnah is not like Rebbe. It's Ani, we learned in our Mishnah. In our Bryce, actually, which parallels our Mishnah. Hikdish chayoso, if a person is makdish all of his chayos and all of his beimtos, hikdish is a goy, it doesn't include the koys in his herd. Rabbi Omer, hikdish is a koy, Rabbi says it is hekdish, our Mishnah said it's not hekdish. Similarly, Omar Harani knows the person says, I'll be a nazir, shezer chayah, if this is an chayah, nazir, he's a nazir. Shezer behema, if he says, I'm a nazir, this is a behema, nazir. Shein a chaya, if this he says it's not a chaya, he's also a nazir. Shein a behema, nazir, it's also a nazir. She's a chaya behema, nazir, it's also nazir. Shein nazir, shein a chaya v'lo behema. If he takes also an oath, it's not a chaya nor behema, nazir. In all these cases, he becomes a nazir. Tough. Rabbi Chaga Bikkurim Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Chaga asks for Rabbi Yossi. Lama lo snina horovea. Why is it mentioned if you have relations with a koi, varovea mimenu, it should be, or somebody has relations with it, chayim? Says Gemara Merle, because he says that's included in the end of the Mishnah. It says, Nisa, we learned, besides for the end of the Mishnah, Vishar kol advari, kol drachav, and all other manners, shavin l'chayim behemah, similar to l'chayim behemah. Okay? Ha'achlach ha'trum Bikkurim, last parakin's rhyme. By the way, Bikkurim. This is the classic style of every Masechta in Shas. We get the Tachlis at the end of the Masechta. This one's not so long, so it's not so good for you. Keitzan Rav Yerushalmi Bikkurim, Yerid Adam l'toch sadeh, a person goes down to his field. V'ro'eh teino shebikro, he sees the fig which is first blossoming is the wrong word, first forming. Eshkol, the first cluster of grapes, shabika, which is forming. Rimon, the pomegranate, shabika, which is forming. Kosher megami, you tie it with hemp. V'ayim may say, Harei elu Bikkurim, these are Bikkurim, designated verbally. Even though you did this, you have to again redesignate them as a Bikkurim once they're severed from the ground. So this is an interesting thing. Rabbi Shimon holds it doesn't become Bikkurim Mechuber L'Karka. Even though you designate one as Mechuber L'Karka, you have to redesignate it again. That's not sufficient. And this is what more is going to discuss now. According to Rabbi Shimon, if you didn't designate it betolush, once you severed it, it's not Bikkurim. And therefore, if it falls into chulin, it doesn't create meduma. If you eat it, you don't have to, you don't have to pay an extra fifth. If you eat it outside the Azora, actually, if you eat it outside the Beis Hamikdash, you don't get Malchus, right? So my time of the Rabbanah, what's the logic of the rabbis who say it's even designated at the time that it's Mechuber L'Karka? A year I brought the rashis of Priya Adama, meaning that which I designate as rashis when it's still in the Adama, right? B'shas Havah Pri. Now, no, that's not the drasha. I take it back. I just made up a drasha. Scratch that. But in the Atay Nevesius rashis Priya Adama, meaning now it's a Peichi. B'shas hava, when I'm bringing it to peri. Or b'shas hafrosha afilu boiser v'afilu pagin. That means that when I designated it, it could even have been very boiser is like it's when it's just first forming. And pagin means it's a little bit more formed but unripe. And therefore the flip side of this is al daiti to Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Shimon's opinion, ma b'shas hava pri, just like at the time you bring it, it's a fully formed fruit. B'shas hafrosha pri, so too when you designate it's a fruit. It must be a fruit because it says pri and hava and pri of adama also. So according to Rabbi Shimon, it's a very big nafkamina besides the one we learned. One of the nafkamina we learned apparently in the Mishnah was whether you have to be korei shem once it's off the ground, once it's severed or not. But the other nafkamina is, can you make something which is unripe, bikurim?
Well, it's a davar shalom b'la'olam.
No, Rabbanan hold it is, because that's their Xeris HaKosav. Even at the time designation was it wasn't yet a peri, that's good enough. Bikurim means the first forming things, right? And something formed. It's Rabbi Shimon who's Mechadish, that it's the first fully formed fruit. Okay, so that's a very big machlokas. Yeah. Okay, Rabbi Zira asked, now I was going to look up this in Mashbiach and I kicked myself that I didn't look it up. I forgot to look it up. Rabbi Zira boy, I'll give you Levi Yerushalmi shot, even though I don't like it. Rabbi Zira asked, Bikure Yichur Maushi Atiru Chanoto. There's a halacha that we're going to learn. Let's look at the next line. Tani Bikurim Echel Mishishim. Bikurim Mirabon after 1/60th. Now, according to Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Zira's question, according to Rabbi Shimon, who says that it has to be severed from the ground, that's his Bikurim. What if he designates certain things which are still on the Yichur, which are still on the branch? Do they join together with already that which is harvested to make a shiur? In other words, the rice, it's not Bikurim, right? Because Bikurim, what does it have to be? Severed from the ground. You have to designate when it's severed. But vis-a-vis the halach of shiur, which is anyway at the Rabbanan, which is not the rice, to the things which are still on the branch, cook up to the stuff which is already severed from the ground to make up a shiur on the total amount of produce. I don't like that pshat, and I'm sorry I didn't look it up because the word chanoto doesn't fit in well. Chanoto means buds, and here it means chanoto means the fruit. Okay, but all right, that's what he says. Says Gemara again, Tanya Bikurim Echel Mishishim, the 160th. Oh, we don't resolve it. The Gemara leaves the question dangling whether the stuff on the vine joins with the stuff off the vine in order to make up the shiur of the 60th. Tani Bikurim Echel Mishishim Bikurim are 1/60th. Reish Yisagez first shearings Echel Mishishim 1/60th. That goes to coin too. Truma today be giving Truma Tmeya to coin. Can't do much with it anyway, so you don't have to give the higher shiur. Echel Mishishim 1/60th suffices. Tani Rabbi Shmuel learned Bikurim Echel Mishishim Bikurim is 1/60th. Pay Echel Mishishim 1/60th. Reish Yisagez for shearings the coin Echel Mishishim 1/60th. Truma Tmeya Echel Mishishim Truma Tmeya is 1/60th. And as well, Truma Shein Kohanim Makpidim Aleh Truma Kohanim don't care if they get it or not because it's lousy anyway. Echel Mishishim, what falls in this category? Called Trumas HaKlusin, Truma of Klusin and Charubin Vasorim Shebedom. We had these back in Masechta Maisus or Truma, I forget which one. These are things which are very often used for. They're not significant. They very often grow hefker. Klusim is a type of legume. Charubin are carobs, and Sorim Shebedom are the Idumean barley. So those Kohanim really don't care if they get it or not. They're not really very great eats. So therefore 1/60th is enough. Okay. Now we're getting close here in the Masechta. We start getting to more Agadata. Ketzah Maliyas Bikurim. How do you bring Bikurim to Yerushalayim? Kol Eros, all the cities in the vicinity, Sheva Maimad, which are in part and parcel of Maimad. Now, there were 24 Mishmaros in the Beis HaMikdash, as you know. You also know the Ish Mishmar, the Beis HaMikdash, had a corresponding Maimad of Yisraelim in the hinterlands. At the time that the Kohanim were doing the Karban, at the time that the Kohanim that Mishmar was serving, they would send emissaries to Yerushalayim to be like the Mishalchim, the people who had, so to speak, appointed the Kohanim as their agents. It's a symbolic gesture. Same time, there are people of the Maimad in the city, back home, who would say Tehillim and learn special, in order, because corresponding to the mission which is working. Okay?
There's a particular city.
No, so it's not just a particular city, but an area. Particular city plus its surrounding area. That's what it's talking about over here. Kol ha'eros sheba'maimad. All the areas, all the cities in the region, right? In the area of the region. In the region of the Maimad. Biskantzlir Shemaimad, they go to the main city in the vicinity. V'lonim b'rchov sh'lhir, and they sleep out under the open sky. V'loyin nichnasi, but they wouldn't go to houses. Why? We'll see in the Gemara. Ulamashkim, and the ones who get up early to go to Yerushalayim, Hoyamuna Omer, the people the person who was charged would say, Kumu v'nala et Zion, let us go up to Zion, obeys Hashem Elokeinu, to the house of God our Lord. Now, Kigal says Gemara, Kigal Yehoyariv u'Makirov. Interesting. Each Maimad corresponds to a specific Mishmar. Yehoyariv was a Mishmar, one of the Kohanim's Mishmars, and Makirov, the people know him. Now, what is very interesting is that it seems like your Bikurim would be brought in the week which was your Mishmar in the Beis HaMikdash. Whereas your Maimad would bring Bikurim on that week which is yours. Interesting thing, okay? Your Maimad would bring Bikurim in the week which corresponded to your Mishmar. Okay? V'yolinu bebeis haknesses, why can't they sleep in shul? Now, the Havamina was that the reason they didn't sleep in private homes because there wasn't enough room. But let them sleep in shul. So the Tani Reb Chalafta ben Shomi b'nei Ohel Tumah. They didn't want to go into any Ohel of any sort lest it become Tumah, because they were on the Yerushalayim, go to the Beis HaMikdash. They don't want to take chances, right? But they're Choyoimi. While they were walking, they said, Samachti b'oim li Beis Hashem neilech. I rejoiced when they said to me, we're going to the house of God. Yerushalayim, when they got to Yerushalayim, would say, our legs stood in your gates, Jerusalem. When they got to the Temple Mount, they would say, praise God in its holy place. When they got into the actual courtyard, they said, okay, I guess they would say the whole capital as they were walking through the Harabais. Okay, I guess everybody went. I don't think it's special for the Bikurim people. Everybody, as they went into the Harabais, would say this one of the Tehillim, right? Haluka b'kacho, till they got up to the Azor.
That's not mentioned in the Bible.
No, because this is really not relevant in any place in the Bible. Talk about that.
We had that
Going up to the Harabais. I don't think we had anything. I mean, we had not as part of the a ceremony. I don't know. But in any event, some parts of the next mission will be brought down in the Bible. Our brother and Vargi. Hakrovim Mevim Bikurim.
Well, it's interesting. All they did is mention just one of the Mishmaros, Yehoyariv.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they pick on that?
Yerushalmi, I think they were the first one.
They were the first one.
Okay, so it was shorthand. It's Yerushalmi. We don't go through all that.
We have to go through all of them. Why go through any of them?
I don't know. It's just to show you, though, the correspondence. Akrovim Vim Bikurim. The ones which are near Yerushalayim bring Bikurim of Ta'anim Vanovim, of actual figs and grapes. Harchokim, if you live far away from Yerushalayim, Mevin Grog Simukim, then obviously you bring raisins, you bring dried dates and dried figs and raisins. Hashor Lech Lifneim. Now they would bring together, they would pool their funds and bring an ox to be the korban. And the korban the shor would go in front of them. And its horns were covered with silver. And it had a crown of zayis on its head. And they would play the cholil, the recorder, until they got close to Yerushalayim. When they got close to Yerushalayim, they sent notice to Yerushalayim that they were out near the gates. Vichus Bikurim, and they adorned their Bikurim with what we'll see in a minute. Hapachos, the Vaskani, Vagisborn, these are various different officers of the Beis HaMikdash. Pachos are the assistant Kohanim, Skanim are the assistant Leviim, the Gizbarim are the treasurers.
Oh, Skan is a Skan of Kohen.
No, he says here, Tracy Hunter says Skan Levia.
Hanina.
Okay, but there it says Skan of Kohanim. So there's Stam Skan. You're right. It's the Shvach. I agree. I hear. All right. So Yotzi Cross, they would come towards them. Based on the greatness of the people who are coming, they send greater people, right? For Rosh Yeshiva, they send Rosh Yeshiva. For Rebbes, they send Rebbes, so on and so forth. All crafts in Yerushalmi, only if named, they would stand before them. This is brought down the Bavli. Yerushalmi, they would ask how they were doing, inquire as to their welfare. And they'd say, our brethren, the people of so and so place, Basem l'shalom, may your coming be in peace. Ad heichon, how far away from Yerushalayim do you still bring Bikurim from fresh? As far away as it could become Truma, meaning Bikurim, from good stuff, meaning that it won't get ruined on the way. Bigish Lavi Dvela. There's another not peripheral, but derivative halacha on this. Bigish Lavi Dvela. One wanted to bring Dvela. One wanted to bring pressed figs as Bikurim. Normally we say Imaisa Keilis, if it was Keilis, which is the higher form of pressed figs, you can bring it. Imaisa Butris, if it was Butris, the lower form, you should not bring it. Eno maybe, because always want to look towards for the Mufchar for the best possible type. Pshito Shu Makriv. Now, says Gemara, I understand that ox you bring as a korban. However, says Gemara, now instead of the word Shlomim, which should say Mao Makriv. What is it sacrificed as? Rav Imi Amar Makriv Shlomim. Shlomim on behalf of the people who brought the Bikurim. Rav Amar Mekitza Bos on behalf of Mizbeach. Rav said it's not Shlomim, it's brought as Ketzah Mizbeach. Ketzah Mizbeach, you know, are the korbanos which are brought when the Mizbeach is idle, right? And those are olos. So this was brought as Ketzah Mizbeach, and they brought other Shlomim. This ox was not part of the parcel of the Shlomim they brought together their Bikurim. Rabbi Zira stayed in this case. Yochid, a person who came.
Can I just ask?
Yes, you may.
There's got to be something in this difference between the two of them as to the nature of the concept of korban shlomim. That they have to say it's kitzei mizbeach. It's almost like, you know.
Kitzei mizbeach is ola.
But it's a throwaway. There isn't like a direct chiyuv, but just to keep it going.
Yeah, but so is the shlomim.
Shlomim is at least some kind of like shevach b'hodah. It's some sort of.
So is an ola. I don't see why you have that.
Oh, what? Look,
yeah.
From my impression of Mekitzim Mizbeach is, like I said, it's just got nothing better to do. Let's just throw this on. There isn't
You're exaggerating. You could, I guess, dash what the difference is whether you bring an ola or a shlomim. I think that's a valid distinction. I don't think that case in Mizbeach was a throwaway. I mean, it was a critical component of the Beis Hamikdash. Should always be korbanos. The truth is that, if anything, I would say that Ketzah Mizbeach makes more sense, because I would require each one of these individuals to bring a shlomim and not to bring a communal shlomim. Okay, because this way they're getting away with a communal shlomim.
Except it's really a chiyuv on the Maimon.
No, look at the next Gemara. Very valid point, it would seem. Rabbi Zira stated, Yochid Shrisatzo, an individual is lazy, he didn't come on time. That's part of his Maimon. But he wanted to be Bikurim Veloba, he didn't come with them. Maybe Gedi, he brings a goat. Ukronav Mitzupos Kesef, and instead of covering its horns with gold, he covers it with silver, right? So you see that it is an individual chiyuv as well. If you don't have it, that's not makiv, but it's preferable to bring it. Okay, so that's why I would say, if anything, we would prefer the individuals bring shlomim. Perhaps one can make the argument, and that this korban, this ox, the collective ox, should go to be an ola. Maybe I'm just hypothesizing. Also, maybe they would fight about it for shlomim. I mean, it was only one ox. I mean, they have to distribute it, so maybe that would be a problem. I don't know, but your question is a valid one. I'm just trying to give hypotheses. Right? they would put a crown of olives, it said on our Mishnah, on the top of the ox. Shuri means Shiva, because that's symbolic of the Bikurim, because it's from the 7 species. Tani, Mishaila Bikurim grows, who said when they got outside Yerushalayim, they would adorn their Bikurim. So if someone is bringing Bikurim as grogros, meaning as dried figs, he would buy, when he got near Yerushalayim, fresh figs and put them on top. Samukim brings Bikurim as dried raisins, and he would buy fresh grapes and put them on top. Okay. Considering further in the Mishnah, ask the Gemara a very, very basic question. It said it depends how big they were, who would come out to greet them, right? It should be, not Yerushalayim. Are there any greater or smaller people among the Jews? This line should be cut out and framed, right? Everybody is chashuv among the Jewish people. Everybody should have 2 buttons in the back. Ella. Rather, kini masnisa. This is the way to understand the Mishnah. Buchlusia. Uchlusia depends how many people came out. If you rova nichnasim hoyu yotzim. The more people came, the more people come out to greet them. Not quality-wise, but quantity-wise. Ask them, why do we make people come out to greet them? Did we learn by getting up for an older person or a Talmid Chacham? Takum v'adarta, you should rise and give honor. Maki b'shem b'chisarkis, from this to derive, just like getting up, you don't lose any money. Af hidur shem b'chisarkis, so to giving honor only where there's no loss of money. And here there's going to be a loss of money, because if you have to leave your work in order to come and greet the people bring Bikurim, there's a loss.
Maybe that's the way why they greeted them.
Shani Yocha. Here was different. Shiachas l'kitzim. It doesn't happen that often. Since it doesn't happen that often, so therefore they made him do so. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Bumshem, Rabbi Chuna Bar Chia said,
people were always coming every 2 weeks.
Once a week. It wasn't constant. It was once a week when the people came for that Maimed.
It was once a week, or no, once every 2 weeks?
No, once every week. Once a week.
But there wouldn't be people coming.
They probably took turns to go out too. There probably was a system involved, but we're trying to learn the principle. The principle is that since it didn't happen all the time, it wasn't constant, so therefore it would be okay to go out and take time out to go. Yesterday, Moshe Baruch said, "Borei kamakodo koichon she'osei mitzvah," and see how great people do mitzvahs are. Sheminei zokin eino imdim. For an old man, you don't stand up. No man, and not an old man here, actually, it's a Talmid Chacham. You don't stand up, because if you're going to lose money. Mitzvah, but these people doing the mitzvah Bikurim, oimdim, even because of the loss, we require you to do so. I think this is a variation of this is in the Bavli, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a very fundamental principle. Those who rise when they see a Levaya before the mace, Lomin mekume misa inu kaimin. You're not standing for the dead body. The dead body is dead. El kuminlun. Elamin kume ilin. You're standing before those the gamli chesed or goyim chesed to be malav of the mace. So you see Levaya get up for the malavim, not for the mace himself. Akam odem tzarich lam livnei zaken. How many times a person has to get up a day for his Talmid Chacham? Shimon bar Abba b'Shem Yochanan said, "Pamayim biyom," twice a day. Not more than 4 HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Twice a day. You get up in the morning and the evening. But Rabbi Lezer Omer, Parachas B'yom, only once. Says more. Wait a minute. Lokein Tayim we learn Rabbi Shimon Lezer. Omer says Minayin Lezogish Lo Yatriach. How we know that the Zokein, the Talmid Chacham, should not cause tircha, shouldn't cause people to get up too much. Talmud Lomar Zokein, it says, hey, Talmid Chacham. Zokin here means the Talmid Chacham. Be fearful of me, Ani Hashem. In other words, don't call moik people get up in front of you. I know what you're trying to do, you Baal Gaiva, you. So it says, Gemara, I'll die to Rabbi Yochanan. It makes sense, because Rabbi Yochanan says, they're up to 2 times a day. So the pasuk says, don't make them get up 2 times a day, only make them get up once a day. That's enough. But I'll die to Rabbi Lezer, Lo Yochanan Kolikar, Rabbi Lezer says, you only have to get up once a day anyway. So what does it mean, don't make them get up? What do you mean? So they shouldn't get up at all. At least once they get up, covered at Torah, right? So it says more. Rabbi Yaakov Acha b'Shem Eliezer said this is the pshat according to him. Sometimes the Talmid Chacham sees a group of old men. It's hard for them to get up. They have arthritis. And he's going to pass by them. Begin the Yukumun Lumi Komei in order they should get up in front of him. So the Torah says, don't go out of your way to make sure people get up for you. According to Yochanan means don't make them get up more than once a day, even though you can make them get up to twice. According to this other opinion, which is Rabbi Eliezer, means don't go past people from getting up is difficult and make them rise for you. Okay? Says the Gemara, Kishem Shem Chalukin Khan, just like they argue over here, argue by Shelo Shalom, how many times a day you have to go and give your Rebbe Shalom? Is it even twice or only once? Okay, well, Marav is in 2 minutes next door, so we'll stop here.